Continue to follow that breaking news out of Augusta this morning. Here's what we know so far, in case you are just waking up or just joining us. Early this morning, a plane went down near Daniel Field on Hillcrest Avenue. It was a small plane. We are not releasing the numbers, although we are getting those in or from people who were at the scene, witnesses, you might say. We're going to continue to keep that information private until we are sure that the family of those involved in that plane crash have been notified. But again, here's what we know so far. A small plane went down in a neighborhood on Hillcrest Avenue. The plane broke up, went up into flames. So shortly after 7 o'clock this morning, you're taking a look at the map on your screen right there. This is the 2800 block of Hillcrest Avenue near Daniel Village, not far from Wrightsboro Road, a very busy stretch of roadway at this particular time in the morning. So what we can tell you is that the yard in which that plane crashed did see some significant tree damage. The good news is no one inside the home was hurt. News Channel 6's Barclay Bishop is live at the scene this morning. Barclay, we've been covering this plane crash now for more than an hour. You have new information to tell us.
Mary, it's about the same, but we can tell you it's getting a lot more active. The fire truck, sorry for the delay, we had to move. The fire truck is backing out and leaving. It's just smoke at this point. So here's what happened. Here's what we know so far. Brad called us around 7:10 this morning and said, oh my gosh, a plane crash. This was just a few blocks over from where he lives. And so when we got here, they were just still putting the crime scene tape off. Apparently there were some massive flames, and from witnesses that we spoke with, somebody said that they heard the plane coming over the trees and they could just hear that it was much lower than it should have been. This is right by Daniel Field, so they know the sound. And then the next thing they knew, there was this massive explosion. One of the guys I talked to, Tenant Houston, lives across the street. He said, I was drinking my coffee. I heard it. I ran outside. I saw this huge explosion. He went up as close as he could, trying to save anybody if there was somebody in there, if he had access to be able to get somebody. And he said at that point, everybody was surrounded and just, they were afraid it was going to explode. It did not explode in the fashion that we would think, this huge fireball. Fortunately, the homes didn't catch fire. It did take out some power lines, but right now the coroner is on the scene. I'm sorry, I'm trying to speak up here with the fire truck moving by. They've been doing a great job this morning. Everybody has dozens and dozens of law enforcement officers. But as I mentioned, it was a single craft engine. We are told that the plane was leaving Daniel Field, left Daniel Field, and then started returning back. So it's almost as if something was going on and they knew it, and then never made it back. The coroners were told at least one person has been killed, but this is a very quiet neighborhood. If you're not familiar with this area, this is part of that hill area, West Augusta, right by Daniel Village, Daniel Field, very quiet. And so these homeowners are shook is an understatement of what's happening right now. We don't have a whole lot of details, but we have covered plane crashes before. I'll tell you, never in 17 years, Mary, you've been here longer, and I don't know that any of us have ever talked about a plane going down in the middle of a neighborhood. And if you can kind of get a feel for where we are, it's at Belmont and Hillcrest Avenue. These homes are close together, and there are a lot of trees. The fact that no trees caught fire, creating some much more massive explosion, is a miracle in and of itself. And no irony, I say, because it is National Day of Prayer. A lot of people that we were talking to were actually on their way to the Augusta prayer service. So you can imagine a lot of prayers this morning for the families who have been impacted by this. No names have been released. Perhaps might be a while before we get that. But, you know, in these kind of cases with a plane crash, the National Transportation Safety Board does a very, very good job of taking a fine-tooth comb through this to make sure that they get everything that they can for evidence before they release what possibly could have happened. But at this point, these homeowners are going back into their homes. We're just kind of watching them. One other one was hugging. We think maybe they knew the person who was in the aircraft. We just don't know at this point. But in describing a little bit more about how this happened, Brad said he was in his room and he said, you know, we hear this sound often of the planes. And when they get lower, he said, I often say a prayer of, Lord, I hope that makes it. And then when he heard that big boom, he just said, my gosh, I don't think it happened. And so he ran out to make sure his kids were okay because nobody really knew what was going on. But he ran over here, and that's what was happening. I mean, just flames shooting up. Fortunately, like we said, not an explosion as one might think out of a movie scene, but those flames were incredible. We have some video of that. But anyway, everybody's just trying to go back about their day as best as you can, whatever that looks like, right, on a morning like this. But it is pretty quiet. And there were dozens and dozens of firefighters and police officers and EMT. We saw an EMT bring a stretcher out and then return it back to the ambulance. So never good when you see that. And the coroner, like I said, is on the scene, and we'll have much more as it develops. We were just told that the Sheriff Richard Roundtree, is going to be coming out here shortly and give us a statement, or talk to us a little bit more and answer some questions that all of us have so that we can bring them to you this morning. But certainly a somber morning on what is a beautiful day here, and on National Day of Prayer. So certainly if you take part in that and you're a believer, pray for these families impacted, because it's going to be a rough road ahead. Mary?
Indeed, it is, Barkley. And you were mentioning other plane crashes. I do remember maybe a dozen or more years ago when State Senator Allgood was killed in a plane crash after taking off from Daniel Field. It hit that brick wall by I believe, the water building, the water company, and did not land in a neighborhood. But it's very rare that those planes from Daniel Field meet with this terrible fate, but it has happened in the past. And of course, our thoughts are with those who are suffering this morning.